please welcome Senator Jim DeMint.
Oh, thank you. This feels like home. You're going to have to write my memoirs. I didn't even know all that about myself. For those of you who are nervous about saying the prayer, we're going to get to it right after I finish. They thought it was important to let the politicians speak and get the lying out of the way before we said the prayer tonight. We didn't want them. So I'll finish up that part of the program tonight. I know I speak on behalf of the folks at Heritage, and I'm sure the entire conservative community all across the country, in thanking all of you here for your work. I want to talk tonight a little bit about how encouraging Pennsylvania is to the rest of the country, showing how it can be done and how you can turn things around. It's pretty exciting to see what's really happening. I've already received a whole lot of benefits from being at Heritage that I couldn't get in the United States Senate. I mean, the first thing was I didn't have to go to the inauguration. And even better, I didn't have to go to the State of the Union and get up and down and clap all night. So this has been a great experience already. And I'm particularly thankful for conservatives in Pennsylvania for proving me right on a big risk that I took a few years ago. I heard it had never been done before after I did it, but I had become real frustrated with my own party once I got to the Senate, particularly with a senator from Pennsylvania who always seemed to sell us out on some real important issues. And I had just given so much of my life and family time with my kids growing up. I just decided we weren't going to change Washington until we could change the people who were there. And it was somewhat unexpected and surprised a lot of my colleagues because in the Senate, we have lunch every day with fellow Republicans. So when I endorsed Pat Toomey when he was opposing a sitting Republican senator, I got some pretty stern lectures from our leadership. You know, first of all, I was told, DeMint, you don't understand how Washington works. It's not about the principles, it's about the numbers. And they said, Pat Toomey, a conservative, cannot win in Pennsylvania. And they said, if you help him win the primary, he is not going to be able to win the general election. So you proved them wrong, me right, that if you've got the right ideas, the right candidate, and you've got a conservative group like this who creates the base, that you can change the world. And I think you folks here in Pennsylvania are certainly beginning to do that. And it's exciting to see what Governor Corbett is doing. I congratulated him tonight on his courage in resisting Medicaid expansion. And I've been all over, last few months I've been all over the country, and what's happening here encourages other states. What we're trying to do now is to get 20 or 25 states to hold out, build a coalition, create alternatives to Obamacare that are state-based so that we can show when Obamacare collapses from its own weight that there's a better way to do things. So every time a governor or a speaker of the House or someone holds out, it encourages these other governors who are under incredible pressure because there's lots of candy being dangled in front of them because for the next 2 or 3 years, it just looks wonderful. But our analysts at Heritage has looked at Pennsylvania, and the cost to you is $2 billion within a 10-year window for accepting Medicaid expansion, because once you get those folks on that program, you can never get them off. And the federal money, I know, will not come through because we don't have any more money. We're borrowing almost 50 cents on every dollar we're spending now, and we're printing more money than that. At some point, the music's going to stop. So thanks for your courage. My message tonight is that our country's in trouble and our future is in your hands. It's not in the hands of folks in Washington. They're not going to solve our problems. They are the problem. I've been there for 14 years. My hope is that the conservatives that are in Congress, like Senator Toomey, can help minimize the damage over the next few years, can stop bad legislation, slow it down, while those of us on the outside are cultivating the whole country with the ideas that will make this country stronger and life better for everyone. The reason I left the Senate, and I had already term limited myself in the Senate too, I wasn't going to spend more than 4 years, but I decided I didn't have 4 years. If things go the same way they're going now, 4 years from now, I think we'll be past the point of no return. At least I'm worried that that's a possibility. So I believe we have to stop the bleeding in the next 2 years and then turn things around in the next 4 years. And to do that, we have to organize and coordinate those who believe in the principles of freedom all around the country and get them working together. And that's my commitment for what I want to do at the Heritage Foundation. Nationally, things don't look that good right now. It was real discouraging considering President Obama's record on the economy and jobs. You look at gas prices, on all the measures that normally get a president thrown out of office were present, yet he won the election. It's discouraging to think that that's the state that we have in our country today. But we do need to remember and look at what really happened there, because I'm not sure Republicans have got it figured out. What happened in 2010 was a little bit of a sample of what we have to do to take back our country. Because the Republicans took the majority in the House and we gained seats in the Senate, and it had nothing to do with the Republican Party at the national level. It had everything to do with a grassroots movement that believed in the simple principles of freedom. It was a simple message. We didn't have a laundry list of things you had to agree to in order to be a Tea Party or Republican or Tea Party member. It was stop the spending, stop the borrowing, stop the bailouts, stop Obamacare, just stop the growth of government. And within that Tea Party group was the big tent that Republicans have said they wanted for years. I mean, there were conservatives, there were recovering liberals and libertarians. I mean, there were people who'd never been involved in politics before, and they loved our country, and they wanted to know what they could do to change it, and they showed up at rallies. And the smart Republicans ran as Tea Party Republicans. And now the Tea Parties have been vilified, the brand as such has been diminished, but they're still there. And in traveling around the country, thousands of them have come out as Ed Fuller and I have traveled around on our President's Tour. They're ready for their marching orders. They want to know what they can do. What they want is leadership. And what we hope we can do is help connect them to just a national organization that can coordinate and build and inspire the whole conservative movement. Whenever I'm discouraged about what's going on in Washington, I tell you, there's been a lot of those over the last several years, I think about our founders, the folks who signed the Declaration of Independence, and what a risk they took, what little chance they had of success. I mean, most of us would say there was no chance of them winning against the greatest army in the world. A bunch of guys with rabbit rifles basically signed their death warrant because they believe so much in freedom. It's such an example for us. When you want freedom that much, you're going to get it. We see it all over the world. So they inspire me, and we have a much better chance of succeeding than they did. And I see all over the country a lot of people who still love freedom and are willing to do whatever is necessary to win it back for our country. The good news is, in spite of what's happening nationally, is states like Pennsylvania are taking the lead to demonstrate that conservative ideas work. You can see it in Texas, where they eliminate their income tax and businesses move there, and they fix their tort system, and doctors from all over the world move there. You can see it in Pennsylvania as they go forward with fracking and develop new economies, jobs, more tax revenue. It helps relieve tax pressure and attract more businesses. Right across the line, the demilitarized zone, as I call it, you've got a state that's gone the other way, who doesn't develop their own resources, where the debt is piling up. They'll be in Washington within 5 years needing a bailout. But here you see the result of conservative policy of developing our own energy supplies. You see states like Florida and Louisiana getting more involved with school choice, freedom in education, opportunity in education, and all of the myths about school choice go away when you see the achievement gap between Hispanics and Caucasians close, and African Americans and others close, and you see results. And now what we see is competitive federalism all over the country, where one state's competing with others for their tax code, the best education system, the best energy, the best transportation system. You see the way our country should work, and that shows us that our ideas work. And one way we can communicate that is actually just tell the stories. And we've started doing that in our communication at Heritage, is just put the camera on a child, a fifth grader, who was in a failing Washington school, 3 grades behind. The statistics for children like that are dismal. The chances of success are slim. But you can hear the child and his father talk about a DC scholarship that got him out of dangerous and failing school into a school where he not only caught up, he graduated high school, he's in college today. He can talk to America for us. The Washington Post didn't start believing in school choice because of a policy paper or because they thought it was a good idea. It was because they heard that child and his father talk about the change in his life. And those are the stories we have to tell. And we have to contrast them with stories where liberal progressive policies have been in place for years. You don't have to look far. You could go to Europe and Greece and countries throughout history who have failed because of these top-down centralized ideas. But you could go to Detroit. And Detroit was the premier city for America 50 years ago. We were so proud of Motown, of what it meant to the whole world. But since then, with liberal, progressive, big tax, union-controlled governments, their population is less than half of where it was. They've got over 400 liquor stores in downtown Detroit, but not one chain supermarket. Unemployment for Hispanics and African Americans are near 40%. Only 7% of 8th graders read at the grade level. That's the story of progressive liberal ideas. That's where Obama's policies are taking our country. And these are the stories that we're not telling to the American people, because we can show that our ideas work, that they might make life better for 100% of Americans, not just the few. In fact, the folks who don't vote for our ideas benefit the most from them. And my biggest my biggest frustration is not connecting with those people who these ideas will benefit the most. That's my commitment as I come to Heritage. I know that Americans don't trust the president. They don't trust Congress. They don't trust the political parties. But they will trust us, our neighbors, the folks we work with, our friends. They'll trust us. And I've already seen outside of the political environment, speaking to people around the country as a part of the Heritage Foundation rather than as a politician, people look at it in a totally different way. They're much more open, and they should be, because politicians have not told them the truth, and there's a good reason not to believe them. Heritage has a plan to do just what I've been talking about. It's really a three-pronged plan. We want to continue developing the best policy ideas in the country, backed up by the best research. The whole point of this is just to provide the evidence that these ideas work. I don't feel like we're debating with two equal platforms, in a sense. Our ideas work. We can prove it. Our ideas made this country the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And we see our ideas working in states all over our country today. We can prove that their ideas have failed throughout history and are failing everywhere today. We have to continue to provide that evidence and that research. Another thing we're doing at Heritage, which involves a lot of you here, through Heritage Action, our C4 organization that can be political, is to pull together a grassroots organization all over the country and use it to support members of Congress who are making the right decisions and to work against those when they're not. I found on the inside that really helped. A lot of the things that I took on, like banning earmarks, were opposed by my own leadership, opposed by almost everyone inside. But when we got a grassroots network across the country opposed to them and helped elect people like Pat Toomey, who walked in the door and voted for the ban, along with Rubio and Rand Paul and a number of others, we began to change Washington. Heritage Action is on the ground all over the country, organizing Tea parties, local Republican parties, anybody who wants to be involved. And they're creating that permanent campaign that's going to give us the muscle we need to support candidates who run on the right ideas. This is what Obama has been doing for 6 years. If we're asking why Republicans lost so bad. It was not policies. Most of the people who voted against us, if you get them in a room and talk to them, they agree with our ideas. But they don't believe Republicans care about them because they don't show up. And Obama has had a grassroots network developing for 6 years. He's got paid people all over the country putting together groups, paid people many times on every floor of every dorm in colleges that get people registered and get them out to vote and keep in touch with them. Folks, we can't rely on the Republican Party to set up every now and then when we have an election, a grassroots organization to get in touch with people. Our job as conservatives is to take control of our ideas and our message and build a team, a community in every area of our country where people are plugged into what's going on in Washington. They're informed, and they're inspired, and they feel like that they can make a difference. That's what Heritage Action is doing. And the part that I want to add to that is the third part, and that's communication. We have got to learn how to connect with the American people. We have got to learn how to connect the policies that can make life better for everyone and make our country stronger, to connect those policies with what people really care about and what they value. We have not built that bridge. And the way we're talking about issues don't connect with people in many cases. The things that we think are positive, limited government, the Constitution, balanced budget, for a lot of people, that's not a positive, those aren't positive ideas. But we found in the last couple of months as we visit cities and have a lot of town hall meetings and roundtable discussions with African Americans, Hispanics, with students, with people who don't vote for us, that there is a connection, but there are different words to use, and we've got to find those words. They found out in their campaign in Michigan when they were trying to get rid of all the union control of businesses and government, that if they ran a campaign that said this is a right-to-work campaign, they lose. But if they ran a campaign that said this is about freedom in the workplace, they could win, and they did. It's just sometimes a matter of word and phrasing, and we don't understand what Americans perceive about our ideas. And so what we've launched at Heritage is what we call the American Perception Initiative. And we're setting up online panels and as well as virtual communities that we can regularly develop and test messages about large themes such as federalism, or what limited government means, as well as how do you deal with immigration, how do you deal with gun issues, how do you deal with the marriage issue. And what we want to do at Heritage is not only give all the conservative movement around the country the right ideas, but be as good at giving people the right message as we are giving them the right policies. And then when we can tell members of Congress, whether they're Republicans or anyone who wants to get behind the right ideas, is we've got the evidence that backs up these ideas. We've got a grassroots network that can get millions of people engaged in supporting you if you support that idea. And here's how you have to talk about this idea in order to communicate with the American people. When we put all of that together, America will get connected with the policies and the ideas that can build a strong America. It's within our grasp, but I really believe that it's within your hands. And I'm convinced that I can make more of a difference outside the Senate at the Heritage Foundation, working with conservative groups all over the country, than any one senator or group of senators can do. Because they're going to be on a treadmill going round in a circle, hopefully, for the next 4 years. And the job of those like Pat Toomey and others there is to minimize the damage, slow things down, while we cultivate the country for the right ideas. We can do it, and we're going to count on you to be a big part of that. There are good examples of how this works already, and I know I've already gone too long and everybody's hungry. But just to give a couple of examples, we've tried to stop several UN treaties inside of the Senate in the last few. And all of them started out with almost 100% Democrat support and a lot of Republicans supporting it. But we were able to get scholars from Heritage to come testify about what was really in there. We were able to engage grassroots networks to call and email congressmen and senators. And on that particular bill, I was getting a letter together to Harry Reid to tell him, don't bother, we've got the votes necessary to kill it. I needed about 36, I think, and because treaties need a larger number. But I couldn't get Republicans to sign it. So we turned Heritage Action loose, along with the coalition groups they work with every week. They started publicizing who had signed the letter and who hadn't. And one of the senior Republicans met me on the floor who said he supported my idea. He just didn't want to sign it until he had to. He just said, DeMint, you're causing me a lot of trouble back home. Where's that damn letter? I'm afraid sometimes it takes, but that's you. That's you and people who work with groups that you're involved with. When they start calling and emailing, it makes a difference. Same thing has happened on the gun debate. We took a position. We provided the policy negatives on that. We engaged grassroots, and something that was going to go through did not go through, and I think we've killed the gun bill. We've got big challenges on the immigration bill, folks, which I guarantee you is just more of the same. And it's never good to give the amnesty first and hope to get the fix. Don't fall for that. Ed Meese tells us that was the one vote Ronald Reagan, the one thing Ronald Reagan regretted, is that he allowed that amnesty in 1986 in hopes that they would follow through on their promises. They won't, and we have to get good immigration reform before we deal with those who are here illegally. My point again tonight is the future of America is in your hands, and that I am honored to be a part of that with you. At Heritage, we intend to support and lead anyone in the conservative movement, anyone in the country who wants to work to turn this country around and restore the